Hello, everybody. Randy Patterson here with Boomerocity. Man, do I have a fun interview for you guys this time around? It's with bass player Matt Bissonette. He was Elton John's longtime bass player, I guess, for the last 14 years of Elton's touring career. And Matt has also played with a bunch of other people like Rick Springfield, and he's currently on tour filling in for as bass player with REO Speedwagon. He's played with Julian Lennon and Ringo Starr. This guy's been all over the map, and his brother is the famous drummer Greg Bissonette. So through a mutual friend of ours, we were introduced, and I just thought it'd be a lot of fun to talk to Matt about his career with Elton as well as with other people, even people that we've interviewed here, like Andy Timmons. Turns out he and Andy are very, very good friends, and they've worked on an album together. So listen to this interview, hear what Matt has to say, and find out a few surprises there. He's got some pretty cool stories. So if you would, after you've listened to this interview, would you like it? Would you subscribe to our YouTube channel or to the podcast channel that you're listening to this through? And would you share it and ask your friends to do the same thing? I'd really appreciate it if you do that. So without any further ado, here's my first of what I hope to be many more interviews to come with renowned bass player Matt Bissonette. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerocity. Take care.
Randy.
Hey, Matt. How you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing great. Fine.
That's a sexy wall you got back there. I like that.
I thought that might turn you on. So I stole all the album covers I could find. So,
oh man, that's pretty cool. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for taking the time. I'm glad we finally got the link up.
Now, where are you at exactly?
I'm in you've heard of the Beatles song Back in the USSR. I believe you know a Beatle or two. And so there's that line down in the Smoky Mountains way down south. That's where I am. I'm in the Smoky Mountains. I'm a mile and a half up the road from Dollywood.
No way.
Yeah, way. I've been here for about 10 years now. So
that's great. And where'd you grow up?
Well, I was born here on the other side of the mountain, but I grew up in Arizona and then spent most of my so-called adult life in Dallas or the Dallas area with a couple of detours. But I moved back here in about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago. I love it. So
very nice. Very nice. Well, we're here now. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, again, thank you. And I want to brag on you about something. When we were first talking, you had just gotten off the road with Elton. And when I approached you about interviewing you and you said, hey, I want to, but I mean, I'm summarizing, of course, but you said, hey, I need to spend some time with my wife. And I just thought that was the classiest, coolest thing a musician has ever said. So,
well, it was the truth. I mean, even to this day, I mean, I get going and I start working and it's so much fun doing music that I just kind of forget that it can happen in a second where you just let it go and you just going, that's the first, I kind of fall off the wheel sometimes. So it's a constant work in progress for me.
Well, I can imagine. And gosh, I mean, playing with Elton John, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, I would imagine, huh?
It's pretty fun. It's a pretty good job. And I was just thinking it was 12 years, 12 years of playing,
Wow, I didn't realize you'd been with him that long. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of like I keep thinking I keep doing like 10, 12-year stints with bands, like with Rick Springfield or with Satriani. It's always like 10 years of something that's just like, and I start realizing, holy smokes, man, 62 years old. That's a lot of time, it's pretty crazy.
Well, before we get into serious questions, I got to ask you, bass players get ragged on all the time. So what's your favorite bass player joke you've heard?
Oh,
you need to have one. Is that a sore subject?
Is this off the record?
It can be if you want it to be.
Well, this is one, but it's just kind of long and it's just it could be a guitar player or a bass player joke, but it's probably not for public ears or whatever. But bass player jokes, man, I've been getting slammed with all these Instagram things about bass players and the whole, it's like an aggressive push against bass players. I'm kind of going, where is that coming from?
Yeah. Wow. Without bass, man, you just don't have that bottom sound, man. That's under.
I always look at bass as the analogy of sports because my son plays ball. He got drafted by the Pirates, and
Oh,
he's playing
congratulations.
ball, and he's a really good second baseman, and he plays all the different positions. But second base is that position that you kind of don't hear about so much. The guys, as much as you do as shortstop or third baseman.
Yeah.
But without a great second baseman just holding down the fort and doing his job, you're not gonna get very far, with the team. So I always talk to my son, and we always laugh about that we're both second basemen, is in a way that we just kind of we kind of you kind of peek your head out once in a while to get a little, like check out what I did. But I kind of always know what my job is, and that's to keep the band going.
That's
So
right. That's
never
right.
get ahead of yourself that way. Start with humility, and you can't go wrong.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
So I read somewhere, I told you just a minute ago, I was in Dallas for about 20 years. I understand you went to UNT for a bit, huh?
Yes. Went there in 79 through 81. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was in high school, and my brother went to North Texas first. He went in 77, I think.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was still kind of figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. And I was kind of into sports and different things, but started getting serious about music about my junior year of high school, starting to realize I really liked it. And then I pretty much followed him wherever he went. So he went there, and so then I went there, and then in 79, and I got about 2 years into school before I realized, hey, I was going for a music ed degree, and it was mostly legit upright bass and, classical, and which I was coming from behind from that because I didn't really grow up with that, but I loved it, but it wasn't like my first passion. I loved playing upright jazz and, fusion stuff. And of course, at that time, 79, you'd turn on your AM radio and you'd hear weather report, or you'd hear Joni Mitchell or you'd hear the Beatles. I mean, it was like everything was on the AM radio. And I just kind of fell in love with pop music and that stuff. And I was kind of going, do I really want to teach classical and all that stuff and do that? And I kind of read through the lines. I didn't really want to do that. So thank God in my middle of this, just going into the third year of college, I was going to just drop music completely and go into PE. I figured if I'm going to be a teacher, I would do sports or something.
Cool.
And right then is when I got the gig with Maynard Ferguson. And then I just left college and never went back. So I
Wow.
think he kind of saved me from, I don't know what I would have ended up as or how far I would have gone if I would have just given up music completely or whatever. But I remember that day getting a call from Maynard going, he called me in Texas and left a message on my answering machine. Put on your cowboy boots. You're going on the road. And I'm like going, I'm about as Texan as, I mean, I'm from Detroit. So it's kind of like, I was always known as the Texas boy. And I was like, I'm not really from Texas, but I went to school there. So, and then my son later went to Baylor in Waco. So
Yeah,
we have
yeah.
a lot of Texas root, and stuff. But yeah, yeah, college was an amazing experience at that school. It was the best place to be, not only for the school, but just to be around great musicians that just made you play better the minute you got there. It's a
Well,
pretty amazing place.
their program was top shelf all the way. I don't a good friend of mine, Quentin Hope, amazing guitar player, went there. And then I want to say Andy Timmons went there. Did you know Andy Timmons at all?
I'm in this band with Andy, the Redcoats. We have our own band.
No way. All right.
Yeah, called
We
the Redcoats.
the true story. Um, I was living in McKinney where he does. I lived about 2 blocks from him in the same neighborhood, and I didn't
Right.
know
We
it at
just
the
played
time.
the Guitar Sanctuary
Oh
uh,
yeah, yeah.
a
The
couple
mayor's
years
place
ago.
there.
That's where you were living, or that's where
I
you
was living
live?
in McKinney. I was just about a mile, 2 miles from the Guitar Sanctuary. But when I was there, they were in the old spot before they built that big old thing with the
Right.
venue, all that. So, but Andy lived, as the crow flies, probably about a block and a half from me. But I was at the Dallas International Guitar Show. Gosh, this was 11, 12 years ago. And a buddy of mine come down from Arkansas to go there, and we're standing there. We're getting ready to say goodbye because it was on a Sunday. I start hearing this music, this phenomenal guitar work. And we both looked at each other and I mean, if we could have levitated, we would have. It just sailed right into, and it was Andy playing Cry for You. I
Uh,
became an instant fan. And that was, a month or so later, I'm at the half price books there in McKinney. And I'm over in the record section. I'll look up. I walk over. I say, "Are you Andy Timmons?" He goes, "Yeah, man. You know how sweet he is. I mean, he is
Yeah.
just nice to everybody." And we struck up a conversation. I interviewed him about a month or so later. I think I've got 3 interviews with him. Talked to him after this last album of his. But what an amazing player! Even Steve Lukather is
Oh
not,
yeah.
you
Well,
know.
Andy is in that whole club of great guitar players. I remember we were out with Elton and we were playing in Dallas and we had a couple days off. And my friend, do you know Mike Medina, a drummer, percussionist, bass player?
I've heard of him, but I don't know him.
He is a friend of mine and he picked me up and we went to see Andy playing in a club down in kind of like McKinney area. It wasn't the Guitar Sanctuary. I can't remember where, but I went and saw him. And as soon as I saw him, I was like, man, I can't take my eye off the way this guy's playing guitar. It's just like he would just he would always not always, but he'd do his solo and he'd do like his thing, and then he'd click a button on this delay thing, and then he would just do these soaring solos of sound and stuff. And I was like, this guy is like he's he's not even thinking about theory or anything. He's just playing from his soul. And I was like, and I just talked to him. I go, we're gonna do something together. We're gonna do something. And then about a year later, we put this band together, and then we just finished our second record. So
I
but
did
we've never played in the same room. We've always just done. My brother's playing drums, and Mike Medina and Wally Minko and Ron Pedley, just different friends, just kind of sending files. But it sounds like a band in a room. So somehow it's together. Everyone's gotten, especially during COVID, everybody had to do it that way. But I'm really proud of this band, and Andy's the front center guy of playing everything. I have to write these guitar, I give him these parts. I kind of write everything to start with and send him these parts, and he's like, I know he wants to kill me because they probably don't lay on where a guitar is, but he memorizes, and these are pretty intense songs, really, kind of crazy lines, and he doesn't write it out. He just memorizes it and doesn't punch in. He just plays the whole thing, or he doesn't want to do it halfway. It's pretty amazing,
yeah.
and a great guy.
Yep, yep. I love his breadth of genre that he can play too. I mean, he does prog, he does his own rock. He was with Olivia Newton-John for all those years.
Yeah.
Just has the utmost of respect. But to your career, I mean, my gosh, when I was boning up on your history and such, I mean, I interviewed or met a couple of the people. I mean, I met Ringo back, Luke had me, I had interviewed Luke for the first time, and they were playing Greenville, South Carolina, over on the other side of the mountain from me. And he invited me to the show there. And so I got to meet Ringo there and all that. But God, you and your brother, I mean, your brother's playing with him still. You did Maynard, as you mentioned earlier, Brian Wilson, Don Henley, Julian. I mean, wow. I mean,
Well,
you,
it's
you,
it's I have to give God the glory for all this stuff because I don't deserve to be anywhere. I mean, I just Greg and I just did a session yesterday, and we're just looking at each other and just busting up laughing because we're playing this session for this girl singer who's this amazing young girl who's just writing these songs that sound like every song is a radio hit. And we're looking at each other just going, how did we get here? How did we get to be, playing with young people like this that makes us younger and being around young people like that. But then we thought that we've got to play. And it's kind of funny because, I mean, my personality is not really super outgoing and want to be the center of attention. Like having my own band and being the center of that attention just kind of freaks me out. But playing with other people that are famous is kind of what we've gotten away with doing. And that was, from moving out to LA and being in a good position to hear about things and to do things. But there's this guiding hand. I can only say that God is just picking us up and going, from Lukather, we got to play with Satriani because Greg had played with Steve, and Steve goes, hey, you should get the Bissonette brothers because Joe was looking for a rhythm section. And there we are because Steve said something because he's buddies with Joe. That gig happens. And then we met Mark Hudson, and Mark Hudson set Greg and I up to play with Ringo. And then Ringo and the Roundheads, and then Ringo asked Greg to play in the All-Star Band, and that led to years of that. It's just amazing when you look at things and the progression of things and you just go, but the bottom line is we're just playing in a musical sandbox, and I have to just, I mean, sometimes it gets intense and it's work and it's not fun and, things like that. But I mean, when my son was born in 96, I thought I'd get all, serious now and bag music and get a real job. And I tried to get a FedEx job, and then they said, okay, well, show up at 4 o'clock a.m. and then and I 4 o'clock a.m. You said 4 o'clock a.m. And I said, no, man, I can't do anything. I can't do that, So, I just kind of realized this is all or nothing for Greg and I. It was like, we're musicians, or we're really, I don't know what else we would do. So we both looked at each other. We both were cracking up, just kind of going, not that we've gotten away with murder, but that we've gotten away with, I guess we can say that we feel like we're successful because we love doing what we're doing, and we're getting paid for it, and we get to play with all these, crazy talented people, and it's really kind of strange when you look at it, when I look at it, and I just, being a little kid in Detroit that hated music, and then one day, playing with Elton or playing with Rick Springfield or something, and whatever it is, it's just like, I just kind of, it's just surreal in a way. So
I want to
long.
get back to Elton here in a moment, but I'm just curious. I know you're a believer. I am too. Were you ever much involved with any of the contemporary Christian music artists, like a Phil Keaggy or anybody like that?
Yeah, well, my wife's a music worship leader, and we're always playing at church and doing stuff like that. And I used to play in the not the Harvest Band, but the what was the band's called? Not Koinonia, but Maranatha bands.
Oh, the
I
Maranatha
used to
Band. Yeah.
play with those guys and do different things. I had my own band called the Mustard Seeds, which was kind of based on Christian songs to me. Maybe not. You're right. When you're reaching non-believers and you're just throwing songs out there. When I was first starting to write songs, Stryper was the only rock band that was out there doing that. And
Yeah.
now,
Yeah. Resurrection Band around there too, a little bit, but
right,
yeah.
right. And they're, Keith Green, guys like that, and
Yeah.
all these amazing bands. But I never was really plugged into all that stuff. And to be honest, I kind of get turned off sometimes about it, because it always, it I don't know. They just, to me, I wasn't really as up to speed as most people were with it. So I always kind of kept it separate until we put our band together with Mustard Seeds. And I kind of go, there's got to be a smart way, like King's X. When King's X comes out, they're just a heavy, heavy sounding band, and they're singing great harmonies and great songs. And they just happen to be talking about God. I mean, not in all the songs, but there's a missionary work, if you will, about what they're kind of doing. And that's what I want. That's what interested me. And that when we put that band together, we did it for, 10, 12 years, of course, because everything's 10-year spurts. And and then we just couldn't do it anymore. We had to get real jobs and, make real money and stuff to support our families. But I write a lot of Christian music, and I write a lot of things that probably nobody will ever hear. That's kind of worship music that I write. And it's such a personal thing, man. Even like when I go to church, everybody has their way of relating to God. I mean, some people, like when I go to I go to Harvest Church with Greg Laurie down the street, and
Mhm.
some people are just like hands up, screaming, jumping up and doing their thing. And some people are just quiet. I'm more of the quiet. I get kind of uncomfortable when people get in your face and going, like when a worship leader's going, come on, everybody, stand up. And I get kind of uncomfortable with that, just the way I am.
Mhm.
But I mean, the leaps and bounds that Christian music has made in the last 10 years is unbelievable. And I think a lot of that is, you know, God moving people to write better songs, but
Mm.
also that everybody has a studio in their house with Pro Tools, and they don't, because Christian music couldn't keep up with the budgets to compete with any other band, because there just wasn't a budget to go into a studio and do a record would at least be 30, $50,000 at least. And, now what people can do in their home studios, you just take as much time as you want. It's not costing you studio. I mean, the Chris Tomlins and Lincoln Brewster and all those guys. And I mean, it's amazing how good it is now,
Yeah. Yeah.
and how every church that I go to is playing with a click track, playing with, great drummers that can play with a click track, and they sound like serious great bands. It's amazing. So yeah, to answer your question, I haven't really done that much stuff besides what I do, at home and personally with my wife and different
Mm.
friends and bands and stuff like that at church.
what haven't you done and what haven't you worked on that, this far along in your career and playing the big heights, of the kinds of caliber of people that you played with, who who do you want to play with that you haven't done so yet? Or what kind of project would you like to do that you haven't done yet?
Well, that's nice of you to say it that way. I mean, I played with a lot of great people, and I know there's a lot of amazing people out there that I haven't played with that I would love to. And I mean, I'm 62 years old, and it's kind of one of those things that for me, I learned my lesson early with playing with famous people or whatever, that you get you think, man, I got to play with this person because I love his music. Is very good on the guy. I kind of don't anymore, or I mean, that's happened sometimes. Uh, there's nothing really in my head right now that I have to have a bucket list to play with this person or that person. I mean, I love Bryan Adams. I'd love to play a few songs with Bryan Adams. I'd love to play with Journey, or I'd love to play with I'd love to be able to play in a bebop band and be able to play like this. But there's nothing that's really sticking out in my brain that I really have to do. But I was talking to my wife about this. Is like I 100% know what I don't want to do. I know I don't want to have to do a casual where I go to show up in a tuxedo and play for a wedding where I don't know any of the songs, and I embarrass myself because I haven't done it in a while, because I've done about as many embarrassing things as and learning gigs more than I can share to remember. But I know I kind of don't want to do things that I'm not really good at. I'm kind of older, and I'm kind of set in my ways of just I want to play with my friends and family and people that actually like me, not that, not that that's like really insecure or anything. Maybe it is, but I just want to be someplace that I'm wanted. And
Yeah.
sometimes I know I don't want to do those things where you're just punching the clock and that, or like playing sessions every day where everything's completely written out, and you go in and you're punching the clock like the guys do that are really great players. And I know there's certain things I don't want to do. I just don't really know exactly if there's anything else that I really want to do that's going to make your world. Because I mean, I learned really early that 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 road is not really real. That music is music, and it's God made music. And when we get away from when music becomes self-glorifying, it just kind of you can just tell it's not everything it's supposed to be. And not to judge anything about other kinds of music and stuff, but when I when I've seen famous people that I played with, and I see sometimes that emptiness that they have, I go, how could they feel that when they've been to the top? And most of the time it's usually they've been to the top and they're frustrated that they're not back at the top. And that they're I mean, to get songs on the radio and to have a career, you have to be so driven and single-minded, going, this is where I'm going. This was with Elton, it was a machine. He knew exactly where he wants to go. And the latest thing for him was he wanted to get the what's the awards where you have the Oscar, Grammy,
Oh
whatever
yeah,
the
they that
yeah, I
each
don't even know.
letter spells out something of each
Yeah.
one. Yeah, I forget what that's called.
EGOT or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
To him, he has been shooting for that. And then when he got it a couple months ago, I was just so happy for him because he had that drive to dig in there and make it happen. You got to be like that. I'm not like that. I mean, I like playing with bands of guys that do that and do all the work, and you just kind of show up and play. But that's like a different level of intensity that I never got. And so I just kind of realized with a lot of the people early that it's this music thing is really a smoke screen. It's a smoke screen. And when you get to the top, and any famous person will probably tell you when they got to the top, there was nothing there. That's just the scariest phrase I've ever heard in my life. It's like when Jesus said, you get to heaven and he looks at you and goes, I never knew you. That's pretty scary. It's like that for me with music, because it's like I would think these people that have had number one hits that would be enough, but it's not, you know, there's always something that you want more. I feel kind of happy in my life that I'm not sitting there thinking I have to do anything else because I'm missing something. I feel so blessed to have done what I've done. And if anything else happens, great, you know. But when I got off the road with Elton, I was just like, I'm just going to sit home and write songs in my studio and just write a bunch of albums that nobody will ever hear because it's gratifying and it's fun.
Because you can.
Use my studio, put money in the studio, do all this stuff. And then sure enough, you know, the other day I got a call from my friend who wanted me to sub in REO because the bass player had some surgery and
Mhm.
so I kind of doing gigs till Bruce, the bass player, comes back, and I'm kind of going, here I am, I'm right back out there. You know, it's just like I didn't think that was going to happen. And the funny thing is, my friend Kim from Bullard from Elton's band called me, uh, you know, about 3 months ago, and he says, "Yeah, I'm playing with Foreigner now. It's really cool. The guys are great, and it's really cool music." And I hung up the phone, going, "That sounds pretty cool. That'd be something like fun." A half an hour later, Dave Amato, the guitar player for REO, calls me. He goes, "Can you come down here right now? And we got a gig next week in Vegas, and we need Bruce isn't gonna be able to do it." And I'm like going, "Wait a second. Half an hour ago, I was thinking about this." And it's the same thing with Elton's gig. When I was on the road a lot, just getting fried out, and I remember getting on my knees, just going, "God, please give me a gig." You know, I don't want to be in Green Day where I'm like Moses, I'm the oldest guy up there, and they're like, you know, Grandpa Matt or something. Just give me a gig that makes good money with good music, and just, you know. And by the way, just let me not be the oldest guy. A couple days later, I get the call to do Elton, and I'm the youngest guy in the band.
No way. Wow.
I'm 57 or whatever I was, 55, and I'm still the youngest guy in the band. So absolute laser prayers for exact things are always the most effective, you know, and
Be careful what you pray for, right?
I know exactly. Yeah, and there's that too. So it's you know, I just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, right now I'm going to sub for REO for a little while till Bruce gets back on his feet and just see what happens. And
Are you guys coming through here on that tour?
I don't know. I haven't
I
even
gotta
looked at
look and see.
yeah.
Maybe I can catch you guys on it. I became an Elton John fan in 1974. I
Yeah.
guess it would have been. Yeah, when the Caribou album came out. That was
Mm.
before you joined them, but I mean, just became a huge fan of his. Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me hooked me right away, even though I'd heard, you know, Crocodile Rock and all that before. But I just became this huge fan of Elton's. What would you say, just from your perspective, what do you think is the biggest misconception that people have of Elton from your perspective? You know, as the old saying goes, 20 feet from stardom. What what do you think is the biggest misperception of Elton?
Misconception as far as his music or personality or
Person, any of that, just where, you know, what you hear as one thing and then you see it as being completely different.
that's an interesting question. I mean, I don't know really how to answer that. I mean, Elton is who he is all the time. I mean, it's when you're working for Elton, you don't, you know, he's not going to tell you every day, "Oh, you were fantastic on that song. You played great last night." It's like your gratification of knowing you're doing a good job and that whatever you need to make you feel like you're doing good is that you're on stage the next night and you're not gone,
You
you
haven't
know?
been fired, yeah.
Because if things don't go like this, in his world, then that's when things start getting bad, you know, and you have to stay steps ahead of an Elton or an artist that's so laser focused. Like Davy Johnston, he as the musical director, he's always 3 steps ahead of Elton so that we're prepared for whatever comes his way, you know? So, I mean, I don't know about what kind of misconceptions people have of him. I mean, I had my thoughts of the way it would be when I first started with him, and, my first thing that I thought was because I took Bob Birch's place when he died, he passed away, and Bob was a great friend of mine, and it was really weird for me to take his spot. And I went to his wife's house and I said, "Hey, you know, they asked me to do this job." And, you know, I've known Bob from Bob was my student, music teacher in high school in Detroit.
Mhm.
It was kind of an awkward situation, but somebody had to do it because they had to go out like 2 weeks later after he passed away. And my first thing was to be a good servant, as like with the REO thing. I just wanted to step in and help them do their jobs as if nothing changed, like. So I told the Elton guys, I said, just let me use Bob's basses so that we don't have to change the sound, so it's my sound. Just kind of try and be humble and working for the betterment of the whole thing. And not to sound like a saint or anything, but you're just trying to make it easy on people when they're dealing with they just
Right,
lost a friend, and it was
right.
horrible. So uh with that, I mean, I learned every note Bob played on his last gig, wrote it all out, memorized it, got in there. And by the fourth gig, it was going good. And I remember we were driving, we'd always, as soon as the gig's over, you get in the limo or the van or whatever, and you're just bolting to the airport. And it's like, secret agent people running all over the place. It's so funny. It's just like this massive exodus to get to the next place, which is the way Elton thinks. As soon as that gig's over, he
He's
doesn't
gone.
want to talk about the gig. He's like playing crossword puzzles and he's already in another line. So I remember what we're in the van and then he calls Davey and he puts the phone. He goes, Elton wants to talk to you. And Elton goes, you're doing a great job. And I appreciate that you did all your homework to learn exactly what Bob did. I've taken notice that you've done that, but I really want you to play whatever you want to play, to express yourself, and just don't worry about whatever the past was and whatever anybody was playing this or that. Just make it your own. I think that's the thing for me that I went, that's a sign of a great artist that, and that's the thing about Elton is that you're not playing with tracks, you're not playing with a click track. Every night they play everything completely different. And you got to be on your toes because you never know where it's going to end up. It's not format, boom, cookie cutter stuff. So
Mhm.
with that, because it's the 60s and the 70s, they just played everything without click tracks. So it's loosey goosey musically and different things, and you just got to roll with it. But when he said that, it kind of went, why do I hold so tight to like my music and things that I do and things got to be this certain way? Just lighten up and let other people come into your life and change your direction and write with other people. Don't dominate the writing process. Be open minded and stuff like that. So I mean, I'm sure Elton's probably as much of a control freak as anybody about his songs and whatever. But when he writes a song, Bernie will bring in the lyrics and just show him like 10 different things that he worked on, and he'll go start writing and throw this and then he'll dial in on that one thing, and it's like laser focused. That's the song that we're doing, and you know, I mean, I would have thought my misconception would be that he was going to be looking over everybody's shoulders and telling them what to play, but it was completely the opposite. He
Wow.
never did that. He told me over 12 years, he told me 2 or 3 times, he goes, maybe not play quite so much on Rocket Man once. One of the other songs, I can't remember what it was. He goes, just maybe not play quite so much. For 12 years, for a piano player to tell you that, pretty darn good,
Yeah, it is.
pretty open
Yeah,
minded. So,
that's phenomenal.
but you got to do your job, and you can't, you just can't make mistakes, and especially make consecutive mistakes where you do the same thing every night. That doesn't go well with those guys. You got to kind of be on it. So
That's right. That's right. Well, and back in the day, he was not sober, and I'm sure he made his share of that, so that of mistakes and such. So now, being like you said, laser focused, he expects that to be done with everybody, and they perform at that same level. So
we're all getting paid well. We're
mhm.
all staying in the best hotels and seeing the world. But business is business, and you're up there, and you better do your job. If you don't do it, you're not there. I mean, you will physically be gone.
Now he's off the road now and pretty much retired from that aspect of it, but he's still, he made it known that he's still recording or still going to be working as such. Are
Yeah.
you still working with him in that from that perspective, or are
No,
you?
I know he did another record, and I know he's working, doing his stuff. He can't sit still. I mean, it's impossible. I mean, why would he? I mean, he's
Right, right.
young enough and doing well, and he's still writing great songs and doing his thing. And I think it's great, whatever he's doing. I mean, I've been kind of off doing other stuff, but from what I hear, I know he's writing with young people and surrounding himself with people that are, you know, keeping him young in the mind and
Right.
writing new songs and stuff. And that's good for all of us to learn from. You can't know it all. I mean, just keep an open mind and having guys produce them and help, just write new stuff and make him uncomfortable by doing something that he hasn't done every day of his life. And
Hmm.
that's great. To be open minded to that when you're somebody like him is a testament that he's young at heart. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a good lesson for all of us.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could use some of that myself.
You and me both. I'm just a little older than you are, so I'm right there with you, man.
Ah,
Um, so I want to combine my last two questions into one. What's on your radar for the rest of the year? You mentioned REO, and I hope to catch you on one of those stops there. And then with that, in addition to what's on your radar for the rest of the year, how do you want to be remembered, and what do you hope your legacy is?
wow, good questions. I think my vision of this year, hoping everything goes the way it is. I mean, I'm kind of booked to play with REO for the year. I think we're doing a 3-week tour in March, and then we go out with Train in June, July. And I'm kind of contracted to work with these guys, and these guys are a great band and they're friends of mine. So it's kind of like being in a family. Um, I just kind of go till Bruce comes back or whatever's going to happen. So I'm just kind of just, it's great because whenever that ends, I just go to something else. And I just want Bruce to be okay, the bass player, because he's a great guy. And I just hope for his best that he comes back and everything goes back to normal. So I'm kind of looking at that. I got 3 or 4 different records coming out. We have a new record with our beautiful band here, the Red Coats with 2 Ds with
Mhm.
Andy,
Mhm.
and that's we're just talking to Mike, the producer, musician, and we're just putting the final touches on mixing that. So we're done with that, and we can put that out. And then we have,
When do you anticipate that coming out?
I would think in the next month or 2, we're just gonna kind of figure out how we want to market it, how we want to do it. I mean, it's jazz, fusion, Santana,
Wow.
hard rock. It's everything. It's instrumental stuff and vocal stuff. So there's pop tunes and then there's rock tunes. It's kind of all over the place. So that's what we wanted to do, is have like a weather report band that, like, just a tour through the AM radio in the 70s. You just got it all, because that's what we've
That's what it
all been.
was. Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't have huge intentions of the world making us the new Mariah Carey or, anything. So we're just putting that out, and it's going to be out pretty soon, and we're going to see how that goes. And we have a band called the Squirts, and I highly recommend that nobody looks up the name the Squirts on the internet, because you're probably not going to like what you see. But we have a band that my friend George Bernhardt, guitar player, and Roger Carter, we used to play with Rick Springfield's band, and
Mhm.
then we would open up for Rick, kind of like a glorified sound check for Rick. We'd play and we play our albums. We just, after all these years, we did another one, and that's coming out. And we're done. We're pretty much done mixing that too. So that's probably going to come out at the same time. And
Wow.
I have a band with Rick Springfield called the Red Locusts, and that's we did a first record that came out, and then we're just finished the second one. We don't know yet whether when that's gonna come out or how it's gonna come out. But there's a lot of things going on, and I've been writing a lot of stuff and just having fun, not having any pressure to do anything. And just, my brother and I are always doing sessions with other musicians
Mhm.
and making our living playing music like that. And as far as the year, I'm just kind of trying to combine that with mostly just trying to enjoy my home life with my wife and my dog. I'm trying to suck all these years of my dog's life. He's like 17 years old. And he's like a puppy, but
Whoa.
I want to be around. I mean, I want to be around. And my son is leaving in a couple days to go to spring training, so I want to come see his games as much as I can. He's on the Pittsburgh Pirates, and he's on the AAA team for Indianapolis Indians. So I try and go out and see him whenever I can. When we're out with Dario, maybe we'll be on the East Coast, so I can go see him in Indianapolis or wherever he's at. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of things going on. But to answer the last question, as far as a legacy, I don't really care at all what people remember about me with music, because uh, music is so unimportant to me, of what I am or what anybody is. I mean, music is part of what I do or what a musician does. But I mean, I kind of lost that feeling of finding my purpose through music. I think that I just want to be remembered as a great husband and a great dad and a good owner to my dog and just a good guy that has friends that I always think about, like at my funeral. I don't want anyone to go, Matt was an amazing bass player. He could play really fast and he could do all that. He could sing. It's like I appreciate that and that's really nice. But man, I do not want that on my tombstone. Plus in 20 years, nobody's going to remember me or anybody. I can't remember who won the World Series last year, let alone the Super Bowl this year. And learning that stuff is just passing, fading stuff. I just want to set my son up and my family so when I'm gone, they have as best lives as they can. And just to be remembered as a good guy, that when you hear talking about me, it's not like that guy was a jerk to me in a session or this guy was this. It's like if I could just like my brother, I say, we just try and leave every room nicer than you got there, so that when you leave a session, they are just so happy about what you did that they lifted up their song and their spirit that day, that they had a good memory. That's kind of the biggest thing for me, and not to sound grandiose or,
Mhm.
thinking I'm, Mr. Saint guy or whatever, but I mean, I'm old enough now to realize that that's what really makes me happy. I mean, just talking about God whenever you can and just helping people to feel that they're loved. I had talked to somebody the other day about he just can't forgive himself about stuff that he's done, and he's just constantly crucifying himself about what he's done in the past, and he has no option because he doesn't know God. He doesn't know that will relieve him of things that will lead him to a better life. And there's people that need to hear that. And that's what rocks my world the most, is being able to talk about that stuff, like on a plane to a stranger or even to my closest friends. We're always talking about that stuff because plus it's just not as boring as talking about, what did you do today? What color is your bedroom wall? It's just like this stuff is so important and we don't have that much time left, so
Right. Well,
just trying to cram everything in.
yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Well, Matt, I'm glad this finally happened. I want to tell you too that with these other bands, these other side projects, I'd love to talk to you about those too. If you want to bring other band members in, we'll make it a group conversation. I'd love to do. I did that with Pablo Cruz. I've done that with several bands. Um, I'd love to do it with any of these bands you're doing.
We'll make that wall bigger in the
That's
background.
right. That's right.
Okay.
But I need album covers. You need to send me graphics so I can do them for each album that you're doing it on. So,
All right. Yeah. Well, send me your address and I'll mail you. Do you even listen to CDs anymore?
I do when that's the only thing I get, but I'm not afraid to download or anything like that. But I'll email you my address and then keep it handy, and I'll give you my cell phone number too. Because seriously, on any of your work that you're doing that you want to promote, I'd love to talk to you about it and do my little part. I mean, I'm not Rolling Stone magazine, thank God, but I have a decent following. So I love promoting the music and making our generation aware of what new stuff is coming out, even from people that's been putting out the classic stuff that we still enjoy.
And
So,
well, I appreciate that. That's so nice. And I will definitely, and I forgot to tell you that my brother and I and my friend Paul Dexter, we just started a new, like a TV show kind of a thing. We're trying to get it into a TV show, and it's called A Song in a Day. And I'll send you the trailers coming out this week. Um, and what we do is we're all Seinfeld freaks and we like Seinfeld coffee and cars and stuff. So what we do is Greg and I and Paul will meet at a Starbucks at 10 in the morning and we're filming everything. And we're saying, okay, so by the end of this day, we're going to have a song written and mixed by 12 o'clock. That's the goal. So starting now, 10 o'clock, what are we going to write about today? So we'll just start talking and then we'll come up with a word or something and go, okay, let's write like a rock tune with this phrase in it.
oh,
So then
fun.
we go into a studio and then we record the bass and drums and we write a song in real time. I mean, we've only done a couple episodes, so we're doing one tomorrow. And the first one was the trailer for coming up with the theme song. So we recorded the bass and drums and we played trumpet, trombone, and we're writing words in the car as we're driving to Rick Springfield's house to sing the theme song. So we get to Rick's house and we go, here's kind of what we have, and he goes in and sings it. We take his tracks and we send it to a guitar player in Arizona or wherever. This guy was Frank was in Temecula. So while we're driving home stuck in traffic, he's playing his guitar parts. We get to my house, we do more work, and then we take it to Paul's house, and by midnight it's mixed, and then we put a
Wow.
video to it. So it's kind of like 24, where the TV show, where it's just a one day,
How
here's our
fun.
goal, we're going to do this. And it's just really loose and fun and goofy. So I'll send you
Yeah,
some
send me the
stuff.
link. Now you have your own YouTube channel, or are you
Yeah,
doing it
yeah,
off of your website?
we're just setting it up now. We got a YouTube channel, and we're just in the process of how do we do this, but
Right.
I mean, it's just fun, and it's just, and again, it's with friends, so it's just a blast, and
Send
it's
that to me, and I promise you, Matt, I'll plug it every episode you have. I'll put it on all my social media. And hey,
that
I'd
would be
appreciate it if you share my channel with your friends, and my
definitely,
website and all that. It's on all the podcast platforms. And
yeah.
I'm in my second year with the YouTube thing, but I've been doing Boomerocity I'm wrapping up 15 years. I've got about 500 interviews I've done. And
Wow, that's
so,
amazing.
and
I'm a newbie at this stuff. I have no idea how this stuff works or how you monetize anything, or how we're just doing it because we like it and it's fun. But
same
yeah,
here. Same here.
you're a better man than I do that you know all this stuff, because I look at this stuff and I go, man, that's a lot of work, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, I'm a one-man show for the most part. I have a friend of mine, amazing musician in Phoenix. I mean, I'm sorry, in the Dallas area, great keyboard player he edits my sound and my video. His name is Mike McClellan. And then
Mhm.
I mentioned Quentin Hope earlier that went to UNT. The theme song for my broadcast is one of Quentin's songs called Roll the Dice.
Mhm.
And so if you listen to any of those, the interviews from last couple of years, especially
That-
last year and a half, that will be the lead in and lead out. But
That's awesome.
he's a great guitar player, but let's help each other out on this, man.
I
I'll
like
be
it, man.
happy
Let's
to share
go.
that.
Let's
Let's do
start the
those
movement.
interviews in support of those other albums on those other groups you're doing. Any of them, I don't care what it is. Let's talk.
All right. Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate it, buddy. You're a good guy, and I'll tell Ryan you said hi, and how cool is that? It's great.
Yeah, yeah, and I just can't believe you're playing with Andy these days. That was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, he's an amazing talent, man. He's a God-given talent guy.
He really is. He really is.
Great.
And one of the sweetest souls anybody could ever meet. He really is. So,
Got that right. Exactly.
well, Matt, thanks a million. I'll let you get back to your wife there, and
All right.
let's talk again soon. Okay.
Sounds great, Randy. Thanks for calling, man. Good to see you.
All right. Likewise, and stay safe.
All right, take care.
Take care. Bye bye.